An older sibling always holds some kind of influence over their younger siblings, but my brother held an influence over all of his younger cousins. Growing up so close, everyone wanted to be Devin. He's the reason we all love Star Wars and video games. He's the reason most of us even learned how to play an instrument. My brother was always a superhero. Choosing a college 6 hours away I thought would have been hard enough. But once he graduated, he told us he was planning on moving to Japan. He had gotten a 2-year teaching job with the JET program, and we thought he'd come back after that, but I guess we were wrong.
So I was set on moving to Japan mostly just because it was a place that interested me growing up, and I was really into its history, its traditional culture, pop culture, and the language. Not to mention that I spent years studying the language both in school and out of school. You can think about it like this: the average person goes to school with some sort of dream job in mind, works real hard, graduates, and does whatever they can to reach that goal. For me, getting to Japan was that dream job. I didn't have anything concrete, but I knew that Japan was where I wanted to be. I didn't know how long I would stay, but I definitely didn't go with an intent to come home anytime soon. Moving away from home wasn't really as hard for me as it might be for some people. I mean, I went to college far enough away from home that it got me used to not being able to see my friends and my family all that often, and I took 2 summer trips out to Japan before going there for work, so I had plenty of practice. That's not to say it was easy though, but at least less strenuous than it could have been. A fellow American coworker of mine, who started with me at the same time, had to quit and go home after a few months because they just couldn't handle the stress that can come with a life in another country. So I guess the two of us were really the opposite ends of the spectrum of how living away from home can be. Nowadays though, with the convenience of things like email, Skype, and Facebook, it's easy to still feel connected, even halfway around the world. One of the biggest life-changing experiences I've had while living in Japan, though, was after the earthquake and the tsunami disaster in 2011. The whole thing happened right next door from where I lived, in the prefecture right next to me. Though our area was thankfully safe from the brunt of the destruction. But in the months and years afterwards, traveling together with my Japanese friends and acquaintances to do volunteer relief work, I got to see the real group and community spirit that makes up Japanese society. To simplify things to a really an almost nauseating degree, in the West we tend to be more individualistic, focused on the self, and here in Japan it's a lot more group-oriented. This has its consequences for sure, but the sense of power that came from these groups and working with these people, even through these most traumatic experiences and the most horrifying destruction I've ever seen with my own eyes, was simply incredible. And I was reminded, in many ways, about what exactly I really love about living in Japan. Though it was tradition, history, pop culture that caught my interest at first, it's really the Japanese people themselves that make me really enjoy living here and enjoy my life here. Now, I think I'm turning Japanese sounds like a pretty lame thing to say, but sometimes it feels like it's really true. I have Japanese people telling me all the time that I'm more Japanese than they are, or Japanese people coming up and asking me questions about Japanese language or Japanese culture, things like that, and it's pretty funny. I've also noticed recently that I often feel more comfortable around a bunch of Japanese friends than in a group of fellow foreigners from other countries. Or that I'm always the one telling other people they're talking too loud on a train, or walking on the wrong side of the staircase, or that they probably shouldn't be doing this or that because it's impolite. Because somewhere along the lines, Japanese norms have just naturally become my norms. Maybe it's because of an intense attention to detail I put in my first year or so while I was in Japan, or maybe it's because I started off my Japanese experience in a less traditional manner, doing a farm stay and whatnot. Or because I lived out in the countryside, where things are a bit more traditional than they tend to be in a big city. Whatever the reason, I'm often told I don't seem particularly American, or that I do seem almost Japanese.